What's up, family? Welcome to Unlocking the Vault, where we cover love, money, and business. It's your boy, Jerry. And with me, I have the lovely Tracy.
Hi, guys. Tracy Aguirre. And today we are excited because we are going to be covering real estate, our business side of our, what we want to share with you guys. We are going to cover with you guys the highs and the lows, our $6.2 million listing that we just sold, as well as our very first listing in real estate and a few others. So
we have a few gems for you guys. If you guys are a realtor, a lender, someone that's looking to buy or sell, we're going to cover a lot of real estate stuff, and we got some gems for you guys. And let's get straight into it. What do you think?
Let's do this.
Let's do this. So obviously, talking about business, one of our businesses is in real estate. And real estate, Tracy, is where she head spears the business. And the very first thing that we always get asked is, how do you get into it? How do you get a client? So the very first thing we want to talk about is how did we get into it, and how did we get our first client?
Yeah. So like Jerry mentioned, we do have two divisions in our company that we run in Covina. So Jerry takes care of our loan side, and then I lead our team on the real estate side. And yes, that is a popular question that we do get asked a lot. And it is, how did you get into the business? So I'll share a little bit of my background and how I got into the business. And I don't know if Jerry, you want to share that? And then we want to share with you guys how we got our very first client. Because I think that as a new agent, a lot of people either struggle for a while trying to get clients, or there's some people that go hit the ground running and they get a client right away. So as far as our background, I come from a banking background. I was a branch manager for a while, and I know Jerry also has a banking background. He was in business banking. So we focus mostly on just helping people. When we made the change to go into real estate, it was during the time that we sold our house. We had got our real estate license. We wanted to get into fix and flip. We still are planning on doing that. But that was what led us into real estate. Do you want to talk a little bit on how we got our first client and how that went?
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on what she said, we got into real estate because of our experience. So we both come from the customer service industry, obviously finance and banking, right? But at the end of the day, we're providing a service, right, to somebody that we got firsthand experience on how ours was, right? And one of the very first things we noticed that, wow, who do we go to?
Yeah, that was hard. Finding a good realtor to help us sell our house. We had a good realtor that helped us find our house. That realtor wasn't available to help us sell it. So when we were trying to figure out what realtor to use, it was hard. We didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
So
so us going through that experience, we realized like, hey, this is something that, is right up our alley. We can definitely help families with this to ensure that, number one, we do what's best for them, right? Give them the best sound advice. And number two, provide an amazing experience in the process where they can feel like, wow, this was such a memorable thing. And I'm so grateful that I was able to work with you guys because it was an amazing experience. But yeah, to go dive into getting our first client, because that is one of the hardest things when you go into a new industry. What we did is we did what we normally do. We are great people. We like to help as much as we can. And our very first client was somebody, a parent of a baseball player that we were coaching. Our oldest is now 15, and he was maybe 7 or no, he was.
I think around that time it was 2018. 2018, I think it was around the time.
Yeah, so he was around 10, 11-ish, right? And we were really involved, with our kids, and I was one of the coaches on the team, and I love to help, right? If we're helping somebody buy a house, sell a house, get a loan, or it's sports, I want to help that kid or that family do the best that they can. And I think the parents saw that we were able to do that, with baseball. And when they saw that, they felt like, wow, that's somebody I can trust with my child. They had an experience where they had a rental property and the tenant out of the blue just left unbeknownst to them. So they're behind, right? And they needed somebody they can trust. And he reached out and said, hey, Jerry, I know that you guys do real estate. Could you help me out? And at that point, that's when I brought in Tracy.
Yeah.
You want to take
so
it from
actually,
there?
I know Jerry's like giving a lot of the details and he's a lender. But during that time, we were both had our real estate licenses and he was also helping in real estate. So which goes hand in hand now with why he's such a great lender, because he has the background in real estate. He was a realtor. He knows how it feels to get your offer accepted, you know, to go and show property, to sell property. So I know he gave a lot of detail right now, but yes, our first client, I think during that time we were newly licensed. We were trying to figure out if we were going to purchase another property and, you know, fix and flip, or if we were just going to start, you know, going into helping people. And it just so happened that Jerry was a coach to, you know, the kids and my son, and also the kids that were playing together. And one of the coaches that was an assistant coach to Jerry, he was telling Jerry, you know, his, I don't want to say a struggle, but what he was going through at that time with his tenant, and that they needed to sell the house. And Jerry was like, whoa, I can help you. And mind you, we've never helped the client buy or sell a house during that time, but we're confident in knowing that, one, we're good people. We're going to take care of whoever comes to us. Two, that we're going to get the job done and that we're going to get them the best available deal possible for them. So I know that when Jerry was like, hey, we just got a listing. He's like, he wants to sell his house. He has a tenant in place. And I was like, okay, cool. Not knowing anything, we're like, okay, we can do this. We were able to figure out how to draw the contract for a listing agreement. If you just read it, it tells you, you know, line by line, it tells you what you need to fill out. So I'm really good at contracts or anything paper or anything legal. So I know that I went through it and made sure that, you know, our client was protected, that we, you know, filled out the form correctly. Nowadays, there's more resources, I think, than back then. Back then, we just kind of figured it out on our own. But now I think that there's more resources, whether it's YouTube or even at the office that you work at, there's normally somebody there that can assist. But yeah, we filled out the listing agreement. We went, we got it signed. And then we're like, yes, we got a listing. When we went to go see the property, because at that time it was tenant occupied, they didn't give us access. The tenant was like, no, you can't get access until a certain day. So when we go to the day of getting access to the property, man, the tenant had left. And how would you explain the house look, Jerry?
Like that. The house needed work. So it was one of those things that again, we want to make sure that our seller gets as much as he can, but in the condition it was in, he knew there was no way we were going to get to it. So it was a house that needed a lot of work, a lot. Yeah.
And when we took the listing, we're like, man, we're in the area that it is, the amount that, you know, the values of the property. If he wants to at least walk out with funds because, you know, there was a loan on the property, we need to put in some work in order to get the house ready to sell. And that's something that I know that our team prides ourselves in, is we are honest with our sellers and we also help them get their property ready to sell. It does take a few steps, but we take those steps because they're going to get the most bang for their buck or for their property. So I remember walking through the property, and I even remember, I don't know if you remember this, Jerry, that my son actually remembers this. He's 15 now. But at that time, he was like, Mom, I remember when you guys sold a house that we had to go over there and we had to clean. Because the kids from the baseball team, not all of them, right? But the kids of the seller, and also Eli and Jerry went and they started just picking up stuff from the house because it was a mess. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did was, without going into too much into detail, we did help them clean. We also paid to get the house ready. So it needed like new flooring. It needed to get painted. Parts of the restrooms needed to get completely gutted. Yeah. So it was basically like we did a flip on a property that wasn't even ours. That's how I felt.
Yeah. And if I can chime in on that, that's something that honestly normally you don't see. Why? Yeah. Because what if the seller doesn't want to sell? What if you you instead of enhance the property, you make it worse, right? There's so many risks involved. But for us, we went back to the fact that, look, we know what they're going through. They need our help, right? Can we help them? Yes, we can definitely do this. We're taking a risk on and investing on helping somebody, but that's just our character. That's how we work. And we're very confident, right? We do our research to ensure that we can get that, end result, which is sell the house for the dollar amount that we did. And yeah, it was a risky situation. That's not common. You don't see as much, but again, everyone works in different ways. And this is a beautiful thing about our industry, that you can do things where you can go literally above and beyond. But in the other side of the coin, you do have people that aren't as ethical or aren't working in the same level. And that's why when you're out there as a customer, you definitely want to make sure you interview everybody, that there's credibility, right? That they have a track record, that they've sold, that they've bought. And it's hard to say that because how can we show that there, right? And I think that's one of the tips that I would say now. If someone's new, that's where coming into an experienced team comes into play, right? Because typically someone's going to want to go with somebody that has the experience. But if you haven't done that because you're new, then maybe you come into a role where you're an assistant, you're helping somebody, right? And then through that experience of helping somebody, now you have experience. Or if you're brand new, don't have that experience, if you join a team that does, they're going to get that experience through that leader, right? Which we have people on our team, and that's how their clients get, the best service through the relationship, that they have with their team lead.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what Jerry's saying.
Can we get a bomb? Boom. She finally agreed with me.
Why he thinks like today, he just thinks he's really funny. Huh, Andrew? He's like throwing all these jokes like...
What?
I don't understand.
It was on cue. What do you think, Andrew?
You look at your cell phone where you have it. But no, I completely agree with him. I think that we learned a lot of things the hard way. And because of that, yes, it has made us stronger realtors. Financially, we probably could have, whether it's saving more money or maybe making more money or maybe fast-tracked our career sooner, if we would have had maybe the support that we give to our team when we were starting off, I think we would have really took off. But one of the things that I would say is, I think because of the way that we are and because of our past experience and also the trust that we built, that helped us like hit the ground running and really take off. Because we had that very first listing, we were able to sell it quickly. It didn't sit on the market for that long. What took probably the longest is getting the house ready, but it was only like 2 or 3 weeks that it took that. But we also had a serious conversation with the seller and said, you know what, if you put it on the market like the way that it is now, it's not going to sell for the price that you want it. It's better to wait those 3 weeks, have it ready, and then put it on the market, have photos, have it ready so that people come in and, we get you the highest priced offer, which we did. We were able to get them a multiple offer and get them, the highest price. So I know that, like in my experience, that first listing did teach me a lot. I know that we had other clients like shortly after. So I think like as soon as we got licensed right away, I think we started just helping people. It didn't take a long time.
And part of the quick success has to do with our experience, our previous experience, right? Right? Because where we were before, we were able to develop relationships where they can... Your mic's like... all up in my face. All up in your face. Am I good? Come on, man. And if I want to get deeper... All right. So, the relationships that we develop with our experience were our future clients. And that's where I would say, if you're someone that's new getting into the industry, you have to be mindful that wherever you are now, how you carry yourself, right, is going to impact if someone wants to do business with you in the future, right? Yeah. And it's really important that you keep that, in mind, because who you are now is a reflection of who they are going to assume you are in the future. Yeah. So when you said we hit the ground running, it's not just we got lucky, someone thought we were nice. It's how we carried ourselves, our character, our values, right? It led them to trust us. And then we were able to deliver. I thought I just needed to share that because a lot of people get into the industry and there's some basic foundations that we miss, that help us get there, even if we're not there now, right? If you're going through your licensing, start reaching out to your relationships so that way you can hit the ground running with the trust of those clients.
And it's true, because I think a lot of people wait until they're licensed. And yes, there's rules that you cannot market yourself. You know, there's rules that you have to follow. But I think that when you're getting into a new industry, you can also let people know, hey, I'm getting into this new industry. I'm working with somebody who has credibility, because then instantly you get credibility. And I think that's what's helped our team, honestly, because most of the people on our team have been with a license for less than maybe a year and a half is the longest person. And they're all producing as a regular, you know, full-time, top producer, you know, double digits. So the way that I see it is, yes, they're putting in the work and they're getting, you know, the clients and doing the activities that is yielding the results, but also the credibility that they have being on our team helps them also elevate. We tell anybody who works with us, if you're working with whoever it is from our team, you're getting us too. And they do. Whether it's text messages that we're involved in, emails that we respond to, we're fully supporting them to make sure that they're successful just as much as their clients too.
Yeah.
So which other listing do we want to talk about? Because I know that we have quite a few, and there's a few that have been like very high, and there's a few that also, you know, they were a little stressful at times. So
I mean, there's quite a few, but you know, just to kind of add like something big, right? We're always thinking we want to do more, we want to get to that higher end limit. How does that work, right? So I know you just recently closed a listing, right?
Yeah.
That you sold for 6.2 million, right? Which is a huge accomplishment. I think that's a 1%er, if you will. Not a lot of people can say that they've closed a transaction in that volume. And I don't say it as an arrogant way kind of thing, but I say it in a way where I would really like for you to kind of share, like, what did you do, or why were you able to get a client like that? Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's a big jump, right?
So there's different ways that you get clients, right? One of them, like we said, it's doing activities that will get you in front of people. You let them know what you do, you build the trust, and you help them, right? And then another way is relationships. And I think that's the most common way that people in the luxury market will get listings or help clients. So how I got this client was a referral. It was a referral from within the company. So the fact that, you know, our company is well known and there's people in the company that are connected to people within luxury, I think that helps as well. So the way that it was brought up to me was, hey, we have a potential listing. We don't have it yet. We do have to still meet with the client. The client is an attorney. So, you know, when we thought of who would be the best fit to help this client, we thought of you. Would you be willing to help the client? At that moment, it was when the market was hot. So when I pulled comps at that time, the property was, you know, priced within the range of like 7.5 to like 8 million. And I was like, yeah, I can help them. And knowing that, one, I've never helped a client in that high of a luxury market. Yes, we've closed $1 million listings, maybe 1.5, close to 2 million, but not, you know, 6 million or 8 million or in that range. But I know my ability, and I know that I believe that anything that comes to me, I can figure it out. So that's how I took it. I said, I know how to talk to people. I know how to talk to attorneys. I know how to price and do everything, you know, in the real estate market. Yes, in luxury, it takes a little bit more knowledge. Yes. A lot of confidence and money. Money is something that it takes to be able to sell that type of property. So I agreed. I said yes. And we set up a meeting with the client. Without going too much into detail regarding how it went, I'll tell you that it was not easy to get the listing. Right away, were you going to ask me something?
Yeah, can I chime in? Because obviously, you know, we're in a relationship, a serious one. So I hear a lot of our conversations, and I remember that, you know, and it's important that you guys hear this because this is a gem, right? I remember her asking you, hey, because again, once you start dealing with a different level of clients, they're going to do their homework. They're going to do their research. So one thing I highly encourage you to do is know your stuff, right? And if you don't know, do not say that you know something, because then you'll lose credibility instantly, right? So I remember her saying, hey, you've never sold a house of this magnitude. Why should you get the listing? I have somebody else that's the top person out here in this community. I'm going to go with her. So what did you rebuttal, or what did that conversation look like? Because I think it's a really big question, right?
Yeah. So yeah, when I met her, we actually met twice. The first time I was like, okay, normally for a listing appointment, you have to go see the property first before giving a price point of what you want the property to list at, or what you think the property should list at. And the reason why is because not until you see the product is when okay, wait, based off of the market, your property might be valued more because of all the upgrades that you've done, or vice versa. Based off the market, your property needs some work, so we need to price it at this point, right? So she didn't want to meet. She didn't want me to come to her house. She said, we'll do a Zoom. So in the first Zoom meeting, she did say, she was like, you know what? You've never sold a property of this magnitude. Your company hasn't sold a property in this magnitude. So why are you able to sell my home? Or why do you think that you're the best fit? She said, I am interviewing other realtors. There's another realtor that's known in the community because it's a gated community, very exclusive. There's celebrities that live in that community. And she said, I know of the realtors that are known here, and they sell these type of homes all the time. Like, why would you be the best fit for my listing? And I remember when she said that, like, I just believe in my ability so much that I told her, I'm like, well, there's a reason why you're on the phone with me. Like, I know that you're looking at multiple realtors. If you were so confident in that realtor that is known in the community, then you wouldn't have been talking to other realtors and not including myself. So one, maybe the trust that you have because of the referral that was within. Two, I'll tell you that I'm not just like any other realtor. You can look up the way that we market a property and we sell it, and I can get the job done. And then I think after she heard that, and even just the confidence in me speaking, she was like, okay, well, let me see what you can do. And as soon as I started going through the CMA, because she wanted to go straight into numbers, just like an attorney, they just want to know, okay, well, what is the number? Even without me looking at the property, I was like, okay, well, I was prepared, and I was able to show her based off of what's sold, and what is on the market, what's a good price point. She was stuck on, I want this certain price, and I'm not doing anything without having that price. And I was confident enough to tell her, like, I understand that that's the price you want, but we also want to be realistic. And then I showed her how long do houses in that, community, how long do they sit on the market? And the average house in that community sits for at least 1 year. She had 2 months to get her house sold because of the notice of default that was on the property. So I told her, I'm like, you're giving me 2 months to sell your property. I'm confident that I can get it done. But I also am confident that we need to be realistic with price point. We need to be realistic with quite a few things that we talked about. And after that call, she was like, well, you know what? She's like, we're going to continue interviewing the people that we're interviewing, and then, we'll let you know. I had a second conversation with her. And in the second conversation, what she told me was, I looked you guys up. She's like, I looked up your company. I looked you up. She's like, I looked up your reviews. I looked up your Instagram. I looked up everything. And just how you market compared to the other agents that came to see my property, I'm confident that you can bring something different. And especially because I don't have time, which is what I kept telling her, like, you have 2 months to sell this house. So we need to really focus on marketing to get it in front of the right buyer. I even was so detailed into telling her who is the right buyer based off of the location, based off of like just so many things that I looked into. And she agreed, and she gave us the listing.
Wowzers. So I, okay. Because you said a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you threw up all over me. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
I can't with your jokes.
See, come on, man. The people in the back. So you said a lot, and I want to tune into kind of what you said because we want this to not just be like boom, all of this, but really highlight what you did. Number one, you were very confident, right? With dealing with a client that's, you know, a higher end client, they're gonna smell the confidence, the fear, right? Because you want to work with somebody that has the confidence, right?
Yeah.
Now,
and that comes also from my experience, you know, being a branch manager for so long. It's funny because I just put a post recently that my first mentor tagged me on of when I officially got my first branch. And I got my very first branch officially because I was running branches prior to that. I was 24 years old. So imagine being 24 years old, having people, you know, that are older than you, like that are now your direct reports, working with clients that are multimillionaires, or, you know, that because as a branch manager, you're not just managing your branch, you're also helping the high value clients. You're also the one that they call when there's an issue. You're solving it, like problems 24/7, or, you know, making sure that the customer service or experience at your location is the best. So I already had that where I've talked to attorneys, I've talked to doctors, I've talked to, you know, people with money, and it was just like any other conversation.
And I think that's really important to note, simply because when we talk to somebody that, you know, is a lot more successful than one of us, right, it gets intimidating, right? But the funny part is, you know, having that same experience and background working and dealing with affluent clients, they're just another person. Yeah. They're just another mom, another dad. And at the end of the day, if they can see your confidence and you can articulate that you know what you're doing, and they can feel and trust that you're a person and you're here to help me, and you said how, because you literally pinpointed on, all right, you went in there with confidence. You went in there knowing, all right, what are the comps? What are things going to sell for? How long do things sit? What is the average commission? You knew every little fact and detail. Why? Because if she didn't ask one, okay, you need to know that information to better serve her. Yeah. But if she did, you were prepared. Yeah. And I think that's where it kind of like hit it, you know, and got you that listing, simply because one, you were very confident. Two, you were able to articulate the product, right? And number three, you were able to pinpoint her necessity. What does she really need? What's so urgent for her? And that comes from your experience, because in order to be able to do all of that, you had to listen a lot. You had to like deal with a lot of fires. So what would you say, you know, was your biggest takeaway from this whole transaction, right? What would be your biggest takeaway?
Yeah. So there are so many things that happened in this transaction. I know I'm just touching on how I got the client and how I was able to get them to want to work with me. But imagine like having 2 months to find a buyer. We find the buyer, we open escrow, and then the buyer that we have in escrow, it was a 45-day escrow because they were doing partial loan. And to get financing, I know that this is like another topic, but to get financing for a property that big, especially when you're getting a part of it alone, it's not easy, right? And it's not because the clients don't have the money. It's just because of the amount of the loan. There's a lot more details that go into getting that financing. So we were in almost like halfway through escrow, and there was something that the buyers, I don't want to disclose too much for privacy reasons, right? But there was something that the buyers were very concerned about. I, along with our escrow company, Michelle from Conquer Escrow, we gave them anything possible that we can provide to make them feel comfortable that one concern that they had, is, you know, it's not a concern. Like you can move forward with the purchase. And they just did not feel comfortable. They did not want to move forward. So then they canceled. And they canceled right before Christmas. It was like a week before Christmas.
And before you continue, it's crazy because with dealing with this client, the high-end client, it doesn't really come down to I can't afford it. It can literally be, I had a bad day today. I don't want it. I found something I don't like. And it's really a fine line that you have to make sure that you're on top of with being persistent, giving them the information, right?
Yeah.
Because
and also too, what's going on in the market? What do they see in the news? Like so many things. And during that time, the market had drastically changed. It went from being like a hot sales market to all of a sudden, like everything that can be said wrong about real estate was literally on the news. So there was a lot of things happening. It was right before the holidays. So yeah, they canceled. And we remember, like I mentioned, we had a notice of default. We were able to get an extension because we opened escrow. And now we're like, man, how do we get another buyer? And then also still, show the company that, like still give us this extension that we have so that we can get another buyer and close. And I remember being like, okay, what did it take to get this buyer? Everything that I did, all the money that we spent, everything that we did just to get that one buyer, I was like, okay, now I need to do it again. But I remember that, like, just hearing from the seller, because now it's like, oh man, like everything's happening so quick. We don't know if they're going to give us or grant us the extension that they already granted us. So what do we do? And I remember just being like, okay, I'm just going to do what I did last time. It worked. Let me just do it again. And I remember the seller was like, double your marketing budget, like double what you, and I was like, man, like that's a lot of money. And it's risky because what if they don't give us an extension? I lose out on all that money that I invested. And it wasn't like $100. It wasn't $1,000. It was thousands of dollars. So,
and that's another thing, right? As you're getting into business, a customer expects you to invest into their marketing budget, right? What you get, there's a lot of signs out there that I'll sell your house for 1%, 2%, right? But just like anything in life, anything that's cheap comes at a cheap value, cheap price. So what you're going to get is going to be not the best.
Yeah.
So I say that very heavily because sometimes we're always selling just off of price. And that's not the case. That's not what you get. And in this situation, right, you invested I don't want to say how much. You invested thousands of dollars in the hope, basically you're betting on yourself that you can get the job done. Just like the first one. And that's why we brought these two together, because it's like, wow, you invested so much, you believed it, and you delivered. And then you come at this point with more obstacles, some unknowns, and deliver. I mean, I just had to point that out because it takes guts.
So we just did that. And I was like, man, to double our marketing budget. Okay, fine. Like I'll do it and it's going to work out. It's going to work out. And it took some time. I think from the moment that we canceled on the listing, I think we got into escrow maybe like 2.5 to 3 weeks later, which I know it sounds like, man, that's not a long time, right? Especially in the luxury market, especially in that, location, because houses sit for a year. And I remember like other listing agents in that community, listing agents that are known in that community were calling me and they're like, how did you get into escrow twice? Like my house has been sitting, like, what did you do? So imagine, and I'm an agent that has never been, in that space of the multi-million-dollar listing space, but I just knew. And I know how I am. I know myself. I know that once I commit to something, once I tell somebody that I'm going to get it done, I'm going to get it done. Even if it means, and yes, we personally called relationships. We sent text messages. We were doing everything we can to make sure that that property was in front of anybody that can qualify to purchase a home. And we were able to get another buyer. We got them into escrow, which I'm really happy that we were able to do that. And in this escrow, this is something where, like, I would say that is very important as a listing agent. If whoever you're choosing to be your listing agent who's going to sell your property, they have to be really good communicators. They need to be able to have a conversation with the other side to be able to mediate things that maybe at times might seem hard or that somebody might want and maybe the seller doesn't want. Because there are sometimes and I see it a lot where listing agents may feel like, oh, I'm the listing agent, so you just have to do everything that I say. And they might at times be combative to the other side. You can have that, especially if you as the seller are trying to get, the best, not only for yourself, but just overall to have that transaction be a good one. Because I know that I had multiple conversations with the not only the first buyer, but the second buyer. And there were times where, because the buyer that purchased a house, it is an overseas buyer, there were times where, in China, the hours are different than here. There were times where it was like 12 or 1 a.m. and I'm sending text messages, emails, or on the phone, having a conversation just to make sure that we can come to an agreement. And a completely big curveball that from this transaction that like happened, and this is something that's out of our control and all we can do is just try to solve it, is insurance. Like, who would have known that in the beginning of 2023 that they were going to change a law that impacts insurance? And this insurance impacted not just luxury, but also impacted just everyday consumer. So if you're trying to get, even like right now, we purchased a new car and we're trying to get auto insurance. If we go with a new person, it takes 2 weeks just to get an approval. But if you're stay with the current person, they can add the car right away. But there is a time frame also. So that's one thing that I'm like, man, like, who would have thought that all these things were going to come at once and that we're going to affect this sale? And even then, if now insurance increased for the buyer, I'll give you like an example. The seller is at that time was paying like $20,000 a year for insurance for that same home. Now the new buyer, every quote, and I'm telling you because we called so many different insurance carriers, we called so many different brokers trying to figure out what is the best plan for this buyer. And me as a listing agent, I'm making calls. Also, the sellers were making calls. We were all working together trying to figure out how we can get insurance for the property because it was in a high fire zone. There was so many things, but we were getting quotes of, compared to 20,000, we're getting quotes at 125,000.
We got some at 300. Remember there was one at 300,000. Some of the beginning ones were like, what? For insurance for the year?
I like how you're saying we like it was you.
Well, because we like, I don't speak French. We're a thing. It's just you and me.
So yes, the insurance quotes were insane. And I remember just being like, okay, this is not going to stop us. We're literally like almost at the finish line. Like, we need to complete this. We need to figure it out. And it got to the point where, we had to negotiate price. And it was either we negotiate price and negotiate, how we can come in the middle, or we go back into escrow with another buyer, and that other buyer is going to have the same issue with insurance. And they were tough conversations. It wasn't easy being able to have that conversation with the seller or with the buyer's agent and come to an understanding, but we were able to
make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why you knew you were going to be able to make it happen is you started from the end. You're like, who is the buyer? Right. And from that standpoint, you like reverse engineered how to get to that person. And then once you got into escrow, you leveraged your experience to communicate, to negotiate. And I love that you said, communication is key, right? Yeah. Because even this week, we opened escrow, or you guys opened escrow on a listing you guys have. Yeah. And I was cross qualifying. And the other agent, as I asked questions, because as a cross qualification to give you guys, full scope, is me as a lender, I'm calling the other lender who's representing the buyer so I can ask questions to see if they qualify, right? Because a lot of times people don't do their due diligence, right? It's not fun. I don't get paid for it, but that's the value that we're bringing to our sellers, right? That we're going to ensure that if we accept an offer, we're going to close. And as I'm asking questions, the lender got pissed off. He literally got frustrated. He yelled at me, and then he stopped himself and he said, "You know what? I'm so sorry. What documents do you need? Let me get them to you. I just, we can do this deal." And I just got a little frustrated. But the good thing is,
what Jerry's not talking about or mentioning is that the reason why he felt like that was because he felt like, I do thousands of loans. I do this. Like, look me up. Like, just trust me, right? And I think that's important to point that out, because yes, we can look at what somebody does. We can look up people's numbers. We can see, are they legit, right? But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that maybe that client is the best client, or maybe that they will qualify for that property. So for us, when we have a listing, and because we have, our lending division, we are able to review everything thoroughly. And Jerry, yes, he doesn't get paid to do that, but part of our partnership is he's there to support us, to make sure that whatever buyer we choose, whenever we're presenting to a seller and the seller chooses that buyer, that it is the best buyer and that they can qualify to purchase that property. So I remember that you're like, man, he just got mad, but you know, I want to make sure that it's the best buyer. And I told him, and then he caught himself and he was like, okay, you know what? Let me start all over. I'll send you what you're requesting. I'll do the 1003 because you know, he needed to input everything on the system. He's like, and then I'll send you what you guys need, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and he sent an email. Obviously, he was trying to smoosh me up a little bit. He's like, "You're a great lender, doing your due diligence. Here's everything you wanted." Right. Mm-hmm. But again, you know, it's how you communicate. And we moved with them because this is business. We're not upset, you know, but I wanted to bring it up because communication is key. And from the beginning, you kind of get a good sense of understanding of, hey, is this somebody that's going to represent me well? Are they going to let me know what's going on? Are they going to choose for me? Are they going to give me options of what's going on here? And I think you did a really, really well job communicating in this situation because there was a lot of communication.
Yeah. And then I know that you asked me like, what was one of my biggest learnings? But before I share that, what do you think, Andrew? Should we take off Instagram?
Yeah, take it off because we want you guys to see the full
We want you guys to watch our full podcast so you guys can see. We were on there for a minute. And we are sharing a lot of great stuff. You didn't even go on to see how many people had questions.
I was on.
I won't say anything.
Okay.
Nah, no one can jump on or you're out every Thursday. You know.
Yes. So one of the biggest learnings that I took away from this listing, other than like, you know, my confidence and just, you know, like the things that I shared, is just a lot of in real estate, which I already knew this, right, is all psychology. A lot of it is emotion. There's a lot of things happening, especially when it comes to money. And I think as long as we're able to connect and relate and talk to our clients and find out like what is it that is either stopping them from doing whatever that next step is, or what is it that is like the goal, like what's affecting them. Once we find that out, all we can do is just help and it will happen. So I think for me, one of the biggest lessons that I took away from this one was like, man, there was high emotions. There were times where like, I was even like, man, like, how am I going to do this? Like, you know, there's tears, there's anger, there's happiness, like there's so many different emotions at different times. And I'm like, no, like I'm strong. I know I can do it. I know I can have the conversations. I know what they need. I just need to get to that end point. And yeah, like that was one of the things where I'm like, man, it was very highly emotional. And as a realtor, I think you're like the backbone. Like you're the one that has to show them like, no, we got this. Like, don't worry. Yes, I understand that that's how you're feeling, but we're going to get there. And I think that helps them feel reassured and also know that they can trust you.
Yeah, I agree. So now we're going to switch off to another topic. I know that recently you've been helping a lot of families either upgrade their house or sell the one that they have and buy another one. You know, whether they want to be at a better area and upgrade. And I know that's something a lot of individuals don't know the process on how it works. It's really scary because you're thinking, man, I'm going to sell my house, but then I haven't found the one I want. Yeah. Right. So I know if you have like a story or somebody you want to talk about, like a transaction, because it gets really complicated. But I think right now with all the noise, with everything just logistically, it's so overwhelming that a lot of people don't do anything. So if you can chime in on like maybe a scenario.
Yeah. So actually that's really common right now. I think it's for different reasons. One, there's so much equity in the homes. So because there's so much equity, clients are able to sell their property and get into either a bigger home, maybe the area that they've been wanting that they just haven't been able to afford. There's so many different reasons. And also like, it's a great time, even though the rates and there's so many things that people talk about and I call it noise, right? But if you have somebody who wants to know, okay, what is the ultimate goal? Which is what we do. What is it that you want to do? Okay, so you want to get into this, and I'll give an example because we've actually had, I want to say in the last month or two, we've helped maybe 3 or 4 clients in that same scenario, right? But I'll give you an example on one that comes to mind. This client lived already in a nice area, exclusive area, beautiful home. And they wanted to move into another area that's more exclusive, that it's very hard to find properties there because nobody wants to sell. It's a community where grandparents hand it down to their kids, which then they hand it down to their grandkids, and it just goes down the lineage of family. Like, people don't really sell there. And he was so stuck on, like, I want to live in that community. And even if I showed them a property that was like a block out of the community, he was like, nope, it's not in the community. That's where I want to live. And he was like, I want to sell my house. At first, he wanted to rent his house and buy the other one. And this is where it goes back to the question Jerry asked, is we get so in depth of like, okay, so if your goal is to rent to buy, let's look at your whole option. Let's look at all your finances. Let's look at, can this be possible? And if it can, we're doing that, right? And if it can't, we're not going to say, sorry, you can't, but we're going to say, okay, so this option, for this reason we're not able to do it unless you do, this, or you have the option that you can sell and buy, right? And we bring up all the options all at once. And what we do, especially when someone wants to list to buy, is we look at the loan first. Any other realtor who maybe might not have a background in lending or might not know that might look at, okay, let me go look at the property first, right? But for us, we're like, no, let's look at the loan first. Let's look at, can they qualify? Can they rent it? Can they sell it? What are all the options? And then from there, we look at, okay, so now that we know whether you can or cannot qualify, let's go look at the property and let's look at how we can make these numbers work, especially if you're selling your house for, let's say when we listed it, it was $899,999. But we ended up selling it for $915. And then they were buying a 1.2 in that exclusive market, right? And to tell you, properties in that market sell for 1.4, 1.5 or higher. There is no properties being sold for 1.2, but that was his budget and he wanted to be in that community. So I know that one, we had to sell his house for top dollar. So to get it in a multiple, to get it sold for $915, was something that, it's.
Well, let me paint the picture on that situation. So at this point, rates have gone up as high as they've been, right? You're hearing more noise, don't buy, the market's going to crash, right? So now we're having to sell a house above list price when at this market, sellers that want to sell, and especially fast, are giving credits.
Yeah.
Right? So if you really put that in there, it really goes back to, well, one, how did you sell it above this price in a down market? What did you do? Or how did you even?
Yeah. And I think whenever there's a listing that we have, I always take the same approach. I reverse engineer it, how Jerry likes to call it. I find, okay, who would be the buyer for this property? I need to market to that buyer. Is the property ready to sell? If it's not, I need to get it ready to sell. And that house, it's a beautiful home. But if you walk into it, it's kind of like walking into our house. Our house is like, it's kids. Our house is run by our kids. There's toys everywhere. There's an area where they're like, we know that that's their zone. There's an area where it's our zone, right? That's how that house was. And I knew that if a buyer walked into that house, yes, it would feel like a family home, but they wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm walking into my home, right? And we need to make buyers walk into a home feel like this is my house, or I can envision myself living in this house. So I know with them, we walked through the property and we were honest. We're like, okay, there's a lot of family photos that need to come down. There's a lot of toys that need to be put away. And we don't just tell them what needs to be done. We also schedule, whether it's staging, whether it's declutter, whatever
Cleaning.
needs to be scheduled, we will schedule it to get the property ready for photos, ready to sell. And we knew, especially the price that he wanted to walk away with, he wanted to walk away over $900,000. And in that time, just how Jerry mentioned, there was so much going on in the market and it wasn't so long ago that I was like, man, like $899 is even pushing it, but we'll figure it out. And yeah, we were able to get multiple offers. I was able to convince the buyer's agent to go up in price. It was funny because the seller was even okay with 9-10, and I was like, I think I could get you $5,000 more. I think I could. Let me talk to them. And I was able to get them that extra $5,000. I didn't have to. Everybody was already happy as they were, but I was like, no, I like, if I can get them a better deal, like, I'm gonna get it for them. And yeah, we opened escrow 9/15, and now the next hurdle was, I need to find him a property in the area he wants to buy, and there's nothing. And I knew, I'm like, if I don't find him a property, he's not going to sell. So all this work, all this money, everything that we've already invested, again, is a risk, right? But yeah, I know we did a few things. We went into looking at off-market properties. We looked at off-market listings. We door knocked. We did so much to find him the property and get him that price of 1.2. And we did. We were able to close it. So,
and not only that, you were able to find them the other property that was exactly what they were looking for.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Where it was a great deal, right? Because it was a great deal in the time frame that you needed simultaneously. And, you executed. And it's crazy because there's so many factors that go into selling to buy. But the biggest one is the fear of like, well, I don't know. How do we make it happen? How does it work? And I think when we start talking to clients and we find out what their goal is and the approach that you mentioned, we lay out all of the options, then it's easier for them to say, man, I would love this, but I don't want to do that. So let me go with this. And then sometimes things change. They're like, I want to do this because I want this. This is what I want. Yeah. Right? And that's the cool part, that they get to pick and choose what is best for them versus anyone else, because no one's going to know more than them, right? And if you give them the information, I think it's easier for them to make the best choice.
Yeah. And I think that's where we can really help each other, where yes, on a listing appointment, you don't have your lender attend, right? But in certain situations where we know that there's a potential need for a loan, then in those situations, yes, my lender does come, and he's able to, at that point, go through and explain to them, what options they have. And it really does help, because at the end of the day, I think that what we're doing is not just handing somebody keys, but it's really going through their financial situation, going through their goals and helping them accomplish that goal. And that's how we see it. And by doing that, I think that's where it leads to the success that we're having in a really short period of time, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. So we're winding down. We've covered a lot of stuff. What would you say, let's say we're looking at someone that maybe does want to list their property.
Yeah.
Right. What would you tell them the best steps to find the right, team to help them out? What do you think would be that?
Yeah. So if someone wants to list a property, I think the best thing would be, if you know somebody, it would be looking at the overall picture, not just, oh, my Theo referred this person, or you know what, this person helped my family member 3 years ago, because the market changes, right? So you have to, one, trust the person that you're going to. Are they doing it? And you can tell when you have a conversation with somebody, are they doing it to help you meet the goal that you want? Or are they doing it just to be able to do the transaction or help you sell and more for the paycheck? You can tell based off of having a conversation with somebody what their intent is, right? So I would say, go with somebody you trust. Go with somebody that is, when you are going through your goals with them, that they're like, okay, I can help you get there. And also, like, don't just go off of social media, because social media will make it look like somebody's doing amazing. Do your due diligence. We cover basically all of California. We're licensed in California, so we can sell in anywhere in California. But we're very honest too. So if someone was to reach out to me, if someone wants to sell or sell to buy, all you have to do is just reach out. I will personally have a conversation with you. If it means that you need a loan, Jerry and I, or somebody from our team will help, and we'll go through everything with you. If they're not going through your goals and going through everything in detail, I would say that's a red flag. You want to make sure that you can trust the person that you're going to, because it's a big purchase. There's a lot of things that go into it. So that would be the biggest thing.
Wow. So basically, give you a call.
Yeah. Give me a call.
Awesome. Well, I think we covered a lot today. Is there anything that I missed that you want to Shine some light on?
No, we're doing this more to share. We want to make sure that anybody that hears us, whether it's a realtor, a client, a partner, that they know that they can come to us with any needs that they may have. We want people to learn from, whether it's our experience, whether it's like what we're doing. We just want to share, and then know that by sharing, things always end up doors always end up opening, right? So that's our intent. We're happy, and thank you for listening to our second episode. We can't wait to share, more with you guys. And thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, of course. Definitely thank you. We are starting off a little bit, easy with experiences of what we're talking about. And as you guys follow us, please write down below what you want us to cover. Right. Yes. We're going to be very, very transparent, very real. We're not going to lie. We're not going to BS. We're going to talk based off of our experience to make sure that we add value and it's real. But with that being said, we'll see you guys next week. Tune in.
Bye. Bye.